So we've been discussing a number of the aspects of the Star Wars reboot and trying to tell the story in a piecemeal way and reveal all of the differences both in character construct and in plotline. And I want to continue right along because my part two of the three-part discussion of episodes 1, 2, and 3 sort of tapered off at 10 minutes because I was busy at the time and was called away, but tonight I want to finish that out and really picking up after the fall of Anakin, the rise of Vader, where Luke stands, and where we begin episode 3 and the context and breakdown of episode 3. We know that Vader is consumed by the dark side. He gave up what was left of Anakin Skywalker to pursue the destruction of his children, the complete domination of the Empire under him, so he stands as Emperor Vader, and he does gain a large modicum of control over Republic forces, over people, over planets, to mold the Empire into a powerful war machine. Now, due to the huge transition in plot continuity into the second trilogy, with the Emperor being Vader, Sidious and the Dark Jedi continuing to be a presence on the battlefield and across political dealings and side shifting amongst the Empire as a whole, we see this withdrawal of the Jedi who are accepting, especially with the fall of some of the most renowned living masters. Qui-Gon Jinn, Yoda, Mace Windu, all these guys that were killed outright by Anakin Skywalker in a very public way at the end of episode 2, where he becomes Vader, slays them in a fight. Obi-Wan is able to draw out the last bit of good to both survive himself, go on to protect Luke and Leia, and travel around the galaxy training both of them in lightsaber arts, in force use. Leia takes much more after her mother, and after, I would say, because they were both 10 at the start of the story, I guess 9, because we kept it. Well, we did say, okay, I think I like 9 for both Anakin as a child, his story beginning, and Luke and Leia going into the time shift that happens between episodes 2 and 3, and we come in on their 18th birthday. Not that that's of significance, it just happens to be that they're both 18. And on her 15th birthday, Leia went to, because this has been 5 years of running, Vader, fortunately for the children. Now, Obi-Wan knows that if Vader were to ever detect the Force signatures of Luke, Leia, or himself, he would immediately dedicate all of his resources to finding, capturing, and proceeding down whatever course with them. So Obi-Wan is there to shield and protect them from Vader's Force sensitivity, which reaches from his location out across such a distance across the galaxy that this running game that takes them 5 to 8 years into the future is kind of like how we see Luke as an old man, apparently, in episode 7, who, guides What's-Her-Face. I didn't see it yet. But Luke, obviously being the chosen one, learns both the context of the prophecy, the truth of it, and what it has to mean. It means, which, as we've established, he loves Anakin, he loves his father, and he understands through being played the tapes and seeing them, and seeing the truth of what happened, accepts his father's love and knows he has to kill Vader because that's not his father anymore. That's how he sees it. And I think really the only shadowing of the original becomes this relationship between the two of them throughout the third movie, in which they're meeting on the battlefield regularly, and both the Republic and the Empire are bracing themselves, those that are familiar with Force culture, or are aware of the prophecy, or have a similar prophecy built into their own histories, that they see these cataclysmic events. The galaxy has been at war in pieces before, but in thousands of generations during which the Republic has stood, with the exception of the true Sith who fought this War of the Old Republic, you know what I mean? The war has cooled down in support when it comes to the general public and the populations across the galaxy and of Republic planets that are involved in this war, this bloodshed, this destruction. Just the sheer scale of what we're able to portray now in battlefield size and complexity and the devastation of orbital barrages on cities, on battlefields. Like, imagine the equivalent of EVE Online in its most epic form, where Titans are doing battle, and there's thousands of players active, and fleets, drone swarms, missile swarms, like all of this craziness that we see elsewhere. Let's make the absolute best war scenes that anybody has ever experienced on a screen. And let's give that award to Star Wars for being the one who did it in the end, and sort of outshined all the rest of these remakes and blowout reboots and all this bullshit. That's part of how I feel, but continuing on. The relationship, like I said, between Vader and Luke grows into one where Vader he fools Luke over this period of meeting with him, and he starts to reveal and beguile Anakin's own chosen one Force sense. Because Vader is his weakness. The only thing in his life that is a weakness is his love and admiration for a father who was powerful, noble, but was corrupted, and is a true testament to the dark side of the Force, because the most powerful Jedi Knight that had come before him, the most renowned in history, is Anakin Skywalker. He's a Jaime Lannister, man. If Jaime Lannister never got his hand cut off and was never taken captive and none of that, and continued to rampage across the battlefield, and his legendary skills led him into one-on-one fights with Robb Stark, Homeboy, man, Barristan Selmy, like all of this mess. Oh, God, getting off topic, but that's okay. You get what I'm saying, right? Vader is able to make Luke think that Anakin is resurfacing, and that Anakin, and Luke only really understands that it's bullshit after, because Vader begins to call out to him in dreams. Think along the lines of Voldemort and Harry, where because of their physical connection and both of their magnitudes of Force capability and intuition, Vader reaches out to Luke when he's focused in his little biodome cerebro, that he communicates with Luke in dreams, in his subconscious, and tells him, like, I am trapped inside of this monster. Like, you just have to face me, and when our powers combine, overpower me, and this outer shell will be destroyed, and I'll finally be free. And I just need you to stop me from all this carnage. I wanted the Empire to be the perfect republic, and the dark side consumed me, and so many are suffering because of my reign. And Luke, because of his nature, is beguiled. Vader gets him, and Luke goes to, and I would say this is like a halfway point, when you see just the bitterness of so many. The only thing Luke wants to do is stop the war. He hasn't been able to kill Vader yet, and this influence from Vader is making it even harder. And people are saying to him, no, the whole point was that Vader needs to be destroyed. Like, you don't understand. That's why he said, he made sure to tell you never to trust him, that's not your father. He's tricking you. Luke goes anyway, and I think in a battle, Luke essentially calls out Vader and says, bring the might of the Empire, and let the Empire and the Republic decide once and for all which is the true way of life. And they meet in this entirely crazy epic clash where I think the Death Star is Vader's perfect technological creation. A moon-sized war satellite that can propel itself through the galaxy and has an unlimited barrage of weaponry, including the planet destroyer. Now, isn't it funny? I think it would be a tad more epic if Vader, it's powered by the Force energy. So Vader walks into this room filled with huge power coils, almost like the ones that Homeboy had to shut down in escaping the Death Star in the first place in the originals. But in the center is this pad where Vader ungloves his hand to see the destroyed flesh. And he places it on this pad, and it concentrates his Force energy and amplifies it like a mofo to straight up blast through a planet's core, causing an incredible explosion or implosion. Or maybe it creates like a gravity well in the planet, and the planet is destroyed, and the black hole consumes itself and leaves nothing. Tell me that's not way more epic. But there is a cavalcade of multiple, much smaller Death Stars. I'm going to say the size of a city as opposed to the size of the moon, that do travel with certain elite fleets, and they don't have the planet destroyer, but it's almost like having an aircraft carrier that not only could travel underwater and was big enough to house 10,000 fighter bombers, and could submerge, had force fields and defensive turrets and anti-missile batteries everywhere, 16-inch guns everywhere, and just started belching out super fighters. Your planet's doomed. I'm sorry, we're not even talking planets, we're talking if America had that. You're doomed. Everyone else is doomed. If Kim Jong-un gets one of them, we're all doomed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit excited. I hope I'm not killing your eardrums. I do see that I at least have been peaking in the red on the little audio meter equalizer over here. And I apologize for that, but you're starting to get the point of how it's a much better build than the original. I hope so. I hope that's what you're getting. If you think that my ideas are lame, then tell me about it so I can correct where I'm wrong, but guys, this is the point. Somebody's going to do a reboot eventually. And if we don't get on it now, it's going to be some shit that's not worth our time and money. Because they're not going to get everything right. If they were going to get everything right, they would have done it already. Like, I don't understand why people aren't prepared for when movies suck. This is all a parentheses and a sidebar, I suppose. But, I mean, obviously it's not the content through which we've been traveling. Pardon me while I light a fresh cigarette there, you know. And take a drink of water as I simmer down and attempt to get back to the story. The task at hand. Pardon me. Yep, feel very reset here to get back on track. Very excited to depict this whole conflict. Now, Luke and Vader meet at the helm of this confrontation. Remember, this is halfway through. We're not done. Because Vader successfully tricks Luke. And when he initiates this pure Force knowledge struggle. Now, I'm not talking about cheapening it by making it a Kamehameha Gallic Gun beam struggle. But I think you should be able to palpably tell that they are releasing every constraint in their minds and in their hearts to overpower the other by sheer concentration of Force energy. So these two individuals being the most powerful and equal in power. I always want to say, now, it's debatable to say whether or not Yoda, Qui-Gon, and Mace, now seeing that they were all destroyed while attacking simultaneously with others, if their collective Force, air quotes, power level, power level, shut up. Their collective power level had anything to do with the balance of the Force. Is it just Anakin and Luke that with their power together balance out the might of the Force in its eternal good and evil balance struggle? And in this time of polarization and change, that's a bigger question than ever. When Vader tricks him and Luke starts unleashing his power at maximum level, Vader uses one of the most conniving and powerful techniques that he's dug out of ancient Sith histories. Because I liked an aspect of Vader where the Emperor used Vader as his Force hand in the originals. Vader uses a conclave of dark Jedi to go out to, where the fuck did the Sith come from? They go out to the old Sith sphere of influence in the Outer Rim, where some of the most ancient Sith origins can be found. And I know the difference between Dark Jedi and Sith and their relationship, but I love the Sith as an enemy in the KOTOR context, man. And just to have Vader, unlocking ancient rituals and Force spells or techniques, he absorbs all of this outpouring of power that Luke has. Now, it will regenerate, but for the moment, Vader has doubled himself in power. Because Luke's power is greater than his own, he has tripled, quadrupled, quintupled his power. And for a brief moment, I think it would be so crazy for this whole battle fleet that came to back him up. All of these characters that have been established for 3 movies, 2.5 movies at this point, to be there in battle. Vader fucking annihilates pretty much the entirety of the Republic fleet. Vader obliterates ships and ships and organic life like they were absolutely nothing. This is like an asteroid belt for an entire planet could be filled by the wreckage that's left. And the Imperial fleet, oh shit, he wrecks the Republic and Imperial fleets in his outpouring of power. And in his absolute dark joy, he rains down on Luke verbally, just telling him, like, you fucking, like, you rookie. Obviously not. And no cussing, because this is a Disney movie. But, you fool, dude. Like, how could you not, like me, embrace the dark side? Are you really my son? How dare you think you're the chosen one? How dare you challenge me? Nothing, bro. Like, he just calls him straight out for being a fool, condemns the light side of the Force, and attempts to destroy Luke, but the power is just dissipated. not only is Luke, his force is negated. Now, I think that this whole transaction should take a significant length of time to fully detail out rivalries from the first trilogy getting settled between the two sides, major characters going at it, meeting epic ends, just really trying to close the book in the most dramatic and satisfying way possible. Now, what I shudder to think is that could fucking Leia be in this fleet? At the helm, dude. Leia and Padme are both on the flagship for the Republic in this fight. And when everything is destroyed, they are as well. Now, Vader instantly realizes what he's done and has a complete mental breakdown. Because even though Anakin sort of, and C-3PO and everything, C-3PO, he feels, when Vader force explodes, he feels a huge, like, knife wound in his heart, bro. Like, a cold fear out of nowhere. Analytics start running, and the 3PO whisper of just, like, sensors confirm your suspicions that Padme Amidala and Leia Organa, no, Padme and Leia Skywalker were destroyed. Anakin has a complete... Okay, what's crazy is Vader has a complete mental breakdown. And, he is... I want to say at this point, floating in a bubble of self-created atmosphere in space with Luke. And maybe they had an epic, awesome, ridiculous Skywalker v. Skywalker dogfight. But even as I lose steam, because I want to wind us back down for the conclusion of the episode 1, 2, 3 collection, that when this happens, they both collapse. So no, maybe not. Maybe they're on a ship or something, and they both collapse. Or the Force negates, and they're both just cut off from it. So in the last 15 minutes of the movie, 15 minutes and the clock starts counting down to the end, their power is negated, and they both sort of reach out for the Force. They can't feel it. And then Luke says, so he's like, now's the time for honesty. Like, I know that you're Vader, but is there anything left of my father? And Vader just stands there in silence for 30 seconds. I feel like that 30 seconds would be so tense, of Vader just standing there in the rubble of this ship, the nothingness around them, the death of Leia, the death of Padme, the death of millions on these giant space fleets battling in the depths of the blackness out there. And he takes off his mask, and he has no lips. He has no face. He has no body. Like, he is just burned flesh. And it doesn't have to be gory, especially after years and years of stasis healing almost. He's just this blank slate. And the inside of his helmet. So his helmet speaks for him, because it's, wired into his brain and then wired into the helmet separately. That transmits vocally what his thoughts generate. In a hawking way, but sounding like James Earl Jones, still preferably, for the love of Shiva's beard. Or myself. But I can't pull off that Earl Jones dude. Okay. Vader, and so 3PO explains, because Anakin's mind is pretty much destroyed. And 3PO elaborates on the whole plan, reveals the ritual, because Vader does not. We almost don't know what happened because the indicators of what's going on with the Force stealing and overwhelming are all physical. They're all visual. And there's no, I want to say there's no dialogue the entire time. The entire scene. When it comes to Luke and Vader. But he elaborates on everything, and he just says, like, you know, without the Force to run, I want to say, for some reason, because of his mental state, Vader will essentially shut down, and life support systems will be shut down. Or Vader himself designated that within 10 minutes, his life support systems will go offline, and he'll cease to live. And Luke tries to ask why, and 3PO just sort of answers as to what he thinks Anakin would say. Because he's like, I hate to have to be the one to break it to you, kid, but, you know, I've known your dad his entire life. Or I've known your dad for 30 years, however many years. And this is exactly what he would say to you. He's he's proud of you, all this stuff. You know, it can be emotional. It doesn't have to be campy, but it can be written to be powerful, brief, without any overacting. The possibility for overacting, though, that will be heavily overseen, I think, for the very important parts. You got to make sure you get somebody who gets it, man, and can do it, and is the right fit. But the Bammer ending that transitions and sets up for 4, 5, and 6 is that at that very moment, so there was reserve fleets heading inbound. So from both, they see this incredibly huge wreckage field, and they both come to a skirt on the outside of it. And the Empire and Republic are still squared off as Vader and Luke are in this lone, intact ship, floating in the middle of a massive field of debris. And 3PO says that there's an anomaly detected. There's a disruption in the midichlorian field that is causing a huge spike in energy. And as these two fleets begin to sort of navigate their way into the field to meet and fight, the field is blown away as if a giant gust of wind starts tossing everything outward from around the ship that Luke and Vader are on. And coming out of hyperspace, or seemingly just materializing out of dark matter fabric, is this very imposing stranger fleet. And all of these drones, all of these fighters and bombers and cruisers, dreadnoughts, battleships. I mean, I'm talking some sweet Star Destroyer crushing design for these ships, and they materialize and instantly start fighting with both sides. But I want to see two of them, two Sith Lord hooded with extremely badass face pieces on, and their Sith armor, dude, and they appear, like, they teleport into this ship, and they look at Vader and Luke, and they unmask themselves, and they're racial Sith in this armor. And they introduce themselves as Sith and and draw red lightsabers, and you see Luke tense up, And Vader put his helmet back on, and they both draw theirs. And